Hello and welcome to the channel. I am Jonathan, otherwise known as X-Witness Awake. And as I mentioned last week, I'm going to be talking to some members of the Apostate Coalition, which of course is peoples of various religions who have left said religions and are now speaking out against them. So I would like to welcome my special guests. Ta-da! Zem and Kay.
Hello, I'm Zem.
Welcome.
And I'm Kay.
It's nice to see.
Thank you so much for having us on.
You're very welcome. It's exciting to see like interaction, faces that move, and voices and things instead of just videos and TikToks and stuff. So, how are you both doing today?
Pretty good, actually. Had a real good end to my work week, so I'm kind of riding high a little bit.
Nice. And you?
I'm always good on Fridays.
Fridays are a good time. Friday is my only for sure day off, so Fridays are like the best.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's always TGIF for me. So
definitely.
So I understand that you both know each other in real life.
Yeah, we met each other in middle school, which was a number of years ago, too high to want to think about because I feel ancient. And known each other.
You feel ancient?
Real good friends the whole time.
That's nice.
Yeah.
So have you been in contact with one another like since the beginning? Like, did you have a time where you didn't talk to each other, or have you always just kind of been tight?
For the most part, we were pretty close.
Yeah.
Time and distance separated us because I moved back to Pennsylvania, and so we lost touch for a couple of years there. Then found each other on Facebook and got real tight again ever since.
Nice. I recently found somebody that Sorry?
I was going to say the move put a little distance between our relationship, but once, social media blew up, we were able to reconnect. So that was nice.
Mm-hmm.
That's nothing that a little Wi-Fi and a good connection can't fix, right?
That's right.
Exactly. Yeah.
I recently got in touch with somebody that I went to in my hall that I grew up with. So I hadn't spoken to her since she was 18 and I am 48. So yeah, it's been a long time. And she was actually an apostate way before, before it was cool, I guess.
Is it cool?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, why not? I'm not ready to
it'll catch on.
I'm not ready to put a bumper sticker on my car yet, but who knows?
One day
bought one for my car, and the order got canceled, and I ended up chickening out.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah, I forget what it was. Either some snafu with like their bank shut down for a while, so they had to stop, and then whatever. Got it, ordered it. A week later, got an email saying, "Sorry, we had to cancel your order. Would you like to do something different?" And I'm like, "Just cancel it."
What are you gonna do?
Exactly.
You can always get it later if you wanted to. Eventually, I'd like to have some designs that people could have available to them. I made a little store a while back, and what?
That one right there.
Yeah.
On the overlay, the one I can't point because it's on mirror.
The Coalition.
The Apostate Coalition one. I'm trying to point up to the corner.
So, and I hadn't really discussed it, but the thought behind that logo was it's sort of like a broadcast tower, and it's like putting out hot information. So it's like, it's like a Wi-Fi tower, but it's the good stuff, talking about cults and how we need to take them down a notch, if you will. I'd like to see them go away, but we're only so many.
It also gives me a pirate radio vibe.
Pirate radio. I was going to say that. Yeah.
Yeah, I like it too. So I had somebody that gave me some help on, tweaking that logo a little bit, and and I use Canva, so I added that little flame thing. Just kind of, it's a nice little added touch.
Nice.
So you both were basically raised in the truth. Is that right?
Since I can remember, at least, yeah.
Are you like me? If somebody says the truth too many times in a row, you're just like, ugh.
Yeah.
I watched an interview that Lloyd Evans had. I don't know when it was. It might have been an old video, but somebody just kept saying the truth over and over again. I'm just like, stop. I had to turn it off. Like, you're triggering me.
Yeah.
It's too much. I can handle about 3 truths in a row, and that's it.
I found myself saying it in conversation of back when I was in the truth. Like, it was just so, one of Jehovah's Witnesses was too much to say, so we shortened it to the truth. And it's not that we're calling it the truth, it was just the title for the religion.
Yeah.
And I found myself saying it and correcting myself more than I do my own pronouns.
Do you find yourselves like using, aside from that, like more speech patterns and terminology that was from when you were younger? Because I had somebody call me out one time when I said something about like older ones and young ones, and they're like, no one says ones. I'm like, yep. Yeah, you're right. That is a little weird, but that's what you would hear, right?
Yeah, I find myself saying things like, we're very happy to be here, are we not? And those sort of things that you would always hear in the assemblies and conventions.
Oh, it's time for the announcements, isn't it?
Yeah. It'd be a musical intermission.
I actually, for me, it was pretty easy to like discard some of the language because I made a concerted effort to like, they're not gonna keep me chained down by the way that I speak. Like, they're not gonna keep, telling me what to say. So I refuse to call it the truth. I refuse to say, little things like that. I catch myself every now and again. Yeah, there's still like little things every now and again, but I overall have gotten most of it out of my, vocabulary, which I'm really happy about because it does sound really insincere and disingenuous.
Yeah.
Like a sales pitch.
Yeah.
I think even just saying like, I was a Jehovah's Witness, you pretty much default to saying I was one of Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yes.
Because it's supposed to be this distinction that it's not just a name, it's also a lifestyle, and it's giving honor to Jehovah, witnessing for him. And it's just like, yeah.
Yeah, you don't hear I was one of the Catholics.
Yeah, that would be super weird if I heard that. Like, okay.
Yeah.
And when you learn about like the way that they use the speech to control you, so like saying I'm one of Jehovah's Witnesses takes away like your individuality. You are not a Jehovah's Witness. You're part of a larger group. So
right.
They like all these little things that they say have a purpose to continue that programming in your mind. So when you learn about stuff like that, you're like, I'm not saying that anymore. Or at least if you're petty like me, I'm like, I'm no longer saying this.
Oh, it's all part of the new personality.
Oh, the Christian personality. I guess instead of saying one of Jehovah's Witnesses, you could say I'm one of the cogs in the machine.
Think different, just like everyone else.
Well, yeah, that's the thing, because everybody has their own personality, but they just want you to just sort of like smooth it over like you're putty. You're like, you don't have anything that's interesting about you. You're just supposed to be another clone.
Well, it's interesting you say that because there was a circuit overseer talk when I was in Texas at Bear Creek where they were actually talking about the new personality, and they literally likened you to a sculpture. Let God mold you into who he wants you to be based on who we decide that should be.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a whole, like it was the theme of that visit for that year was put on the new personality yourselves, be molded by Christ into who we say you should be.
I was molded into a garbage can.
That's not true.
No? Okay. Yeah, there's so many things that are just so wrong about the Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yeah.
That I wish my story could have been, and I made the decision to leave. It wasn't. It was I got kicked out. But, in hindsight, I was still in it mentally. I mean, you generally, unless you're just like, you're already out mentally beforehand, and then you get disfellowshipped, like even if you did something, you're still going to be like trying to get back, trying to think, oh, I can fix this, or, you know, I'm really sorry, whatever. And it's only later do you do your research, or you find out, or you really think about it and deconstruct a little bit, and you're like, oh yeah, that was harmful. So I wish I could say I was disassociated, but I wasn't. So
you're out. That's what matters.
yeah, I think my detailed story is going to be for my Patreons later.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right.
My one Patreon.
Oh no, it'll grow. Give it time.
She gets her name up in lights at the end of the videos. Yeah.
I was gonna say, I think you're right though, because I remember like in my 20s, you know, you turn 21 and you're like, oh, I can drink now and I can like do all this extra stuff. In my 20s, I was very hot and cold, you know, so it was very easy for me to like walk away and party and like do all these sinful things, and then I would feel bad and come back.
Yep.
And
the guilt.
You're right, and you're back to this cycle of like, okay, I'm gonna do it right this time, and then you get pulled away again, and you're inactive. I was inactive for like 4 years, so I was like living my life half here and half there because you still feel guilty about doing things.
Yeah.
So it wasn't until I got this fellowship that I was like, I am giving myself permission to look at apostate content, because now what are they gonna do? Disfellowship me again? And that's when waking up happened. You know, it almost felt, and I always say this, it felt literally like the shackles are off. I can do whatever I want. So sometimes, yes, I wish I could have walked away and told them what I really think about them now, but I honestly feel like it was for the best the way it happened. You know, that I was disfellowship first because it allowed me, or it gave me permission to wake up, to unplug.
My story is a bit darker than that, so I won't go into all of the details, but my real like awakening was depression. I was diagnosed with clinical depression, and they said, we want to do some blood tests, put you on some medication, and start you on therapy. And so my first thought was, oh, I need to go talk to the elders, because I knew that that was a problem. Witnesses looked so down on any sort of mental health, and mental health in general is so like shunned to even think about. And so I did, and I went to the local elders and I said, hey, here's their paperwork. This is what the doctors say. And they're like, oh, you just need to pray more, be out in service more. That'll solve it. It's fine. And obviously that didn't work, because when you have clinical depression, faith isn't going to help you. All your prayers to God go unanswered, which seems obvious in hindsight. And it didn't work. And so I started to just fade. And I went in Acto 2 for a number of years, and in the process started to just ask some questions. I met a friend online who was a Mormon, who is now has left as well. And he just started asking me questions like, hey, so I was talking to my brothers the other day, and we were just thinking about like the cell. And because we were talking about some scientific type stuff that he was working on for work. And it just sort of led to questions that I couldn't answer with the Bible. And I allowed myself to entertain those apostate demonic thoughts. And then I was like, actually, that makes a lot of sense. And whenever I finally was kicked out, which it was their choice to make me leave as well, I was like, you know what? Cool. I'm free now. They made that decision for me. Now I don't have to go. And it was easier that way.
And it is easier for you to not have to make that choice, and it's just done for you, and then you get that freedom in exchange.
Yeah,
because that must be kind of scary to come to that decision that this is not for me anymore, and be like, now what do I do?
Yeah, there was a very strong fear of, well, what if I'm wrong? What if I'm wrong?
Yeah.
God does exist, and now I'm going to be punished or Armageddon for it. And then I just came to terms with the fact that I don't care. If I'm wrong, at least I'll die feeling like I'm being a good human being.
Or also there's the factor of like people's families. I met an elder here locally. he's still an elder, but he's very PMO. He understands it's not the truth, and he's still an elder because of his family. He refuses to leave because it's going to break up his marriage and he's going to lose everything. So there's also that decision of like, is it worth me walking away and losing everything? So
Right.
in some sense, when they make that decision for you and you see the way everyone treats you, it's easier for you to say, okay, I'm out, just kind of back away slowly rather than pulling the trigger on, yourself.
Which is doubly ironic to me because they say that disfellowshipping is a loving provision from God. But whenever you're dropped like a lead balloon, there's no love there. There's no innocence. There's no, we want you to come back. We're only doing this because we have to. The elders
Right.
put on a little spiel for you, try to make you feel good. And then they kick you to the curb and you never hear from your family again. I was disfellowshipped in December of 2017. I'm the oldest of 5 kids. And I don't even know if the other 4 are alive. I assume they are. I see random things that gives me hope that they're still around, but I haven't heard from any of them since. And I felt bad about it at first, but this is their decision. I'm, it's not a sob story or anything, but like if they wanted me to come back, reach out. Let me know they care. Let me know that you're thinking about me and that God still wants me around. They don't do it, and that just proves to me that it's always just been a show for the ones who are still in to make you think that the ones who leave do it on purpose, that they want to be gone, or that they're living some apostate life because there's all this love here and they're choosing to stay away.
And that reminds me of the thing that Lloyd said about him and his father, is that his dad was basically like, well, I'm going to shun you and I can't talk to you anymore. And then he never tried to do anything about it. He didn't fight for him. And he felt that even if he knew that he was wrong and it was going to not turn out the way that he would have liked to have seen his father fight for him a little bit. And I get that, because like you're told you're not supposed to talk to them because they might come back. But then they just sort of go, well, you don't exist anymore. You're dead to me. Like, why is it so easy for you to just cut somebody loose like that? I don't understand that.
Yeah.
I'm sure all of us, having experienced the shunning, if we turned it around and we had kids of our own and they were in a position to where we're told you need to not talk to them, would be like, well, screw you. I'm not doing that. This is my kid. They mean something to me. I mean something to them. I'm not going to do that. So I just can't. It's hard to come to terms with the fact that it's so easy for somebody to just cut you loose.
Especially when you are aware that, okay, they might have had some problems where, like depression in our cases or whatever it might have been. They're in a vulnerable position and they need help rather than needing to be completely shunned. Like when someone needs help and you still cut them loose, that's even more cruel, and that's not just in the case of someone who has depression, but someone who is LGBTQ, someone who might be an alcoholic or might be struggling with drug addiction. Those kinds of issues require community and assistance and love and understanding, and instead they just act like you're dead. And I don't understand how that's loving at all.
And acting like you're dead is what it is, because when somebody's sick, you check on them. They say from the platform over and over again, these are spiritually diseased people. Mm-hmm. Okay, so where's our cure that you're working on to help us back? Where's the science, medicine, anything? Where's the say, hey, we're still thinking about you? I was told whenever I left, the elders are supposed to reach out to you once or twice a year, see how things are going, make sure you have the invitation from the memorial. I haven't heard from them, not one time. They all have my number. It hasn't changed. They were in constant communication beforehand. And this promise from the platform that they've said of, we check on these disfellowshipped ones. No, they haven't done it once. So why would we want to come back? Even if they're right, what justification do they have for saying that we should come back anyway? They're not reaching out. They're doing nothing for us.
Yeah.
There's no reason to.
Yeah, there's no kindness, there's no love there, there's no compassion. And those are things that as a true Christian you're supposed to have for people.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I just did a video I haven't posted. Oh, I actually forgot to post my video today. Oops. I guess I'll do that tomorrow. Okay, so you get the sneak preview that people will fight to visit the same return visit for literally years with very little interest. They're just basic. You know full well that they're just there because you're having a conversation with them because they're lonely or something, or they have just a fleeting interest to what you got to talk about. But you can count your time, and you can place that magazine or that book, and you'll put all that effort into calling on this stranger, essentially. But when it comes to your own blood, you're just like, you're out.
Yeah, when your magazine routes are more important than your family, something's wrong.
Big time.
Yeah.
Yeah, big time.
I mean, our family, we should be worth more to them than laying some magazines down at the laundromat.
Yeah.
But, that's the effort we get, which is none.
Yeah.
So, I guess I shouldn't assume that. Do you have any communication, either one of you, with family members?
I share a storage unit bill with my father, so we communicate enough to make sure that it got paid, because we alternate, and sometimes, money's a little tight, so we'll trade off or something like that. And my great grandmother, who was one of the only people who probably would have still communicated with me if she had Facebook, had passed away about a month ago now, and they called to let me know that it happened. They were supposed to follow up with the invitation to the Jehovah's Witness sponsored Zoom meeting, and they never followed up with it. But beyond that, I haven't heard from anyone who's still a witness since, not family or otherwise.
And you, Kay?
I had no. You mentioned no other witnesses have reached out. I actually had someone reach out that I had worked with when I was a witness. I worked in a clinic full of witnesses, and I had one of those women reach out to me and say, "Hey, I know you're disfellowship, but can I get a what is it called, a recommendation for work?" I was like, "Are you fucking joking? I haven't talked to you and you're not gonna actually hang out with me or talk to me or anything, but you want this? Get out of here." But
it shows how blindly trusting they are in you, and what a good person you must have been to think that they are going to shun you, but you're still going to be good enough to recommend them for a position.
Right. I was
you could be like, "Well, here's my recommendation. They're a hard worker, and if you need somebody fired, they are heartless and cold, and we'll cut them off forever real quick." So they're good for that.
I was like, "Wow, this takes some audacity on your part, but that's all right." But as far as my family or anything like that, my parents are separated, and my dad was never a Jehovah's Witness, so I still have contact with him and his girlfriend and her family. So I'm grateful that I have someone. But as far as my mom, and she kept the kids. I have 3 younger siblings. I don't speak to any of them. I did for a little while. My siblings are 21 and 15 now. So they're old enough to like drive and like be off on their own for a little bit. They'd sneak over here for for a couple times a week just to chat, play video games, and hang out like we used to. Mm-hmm. And then mom found out and she threw a fit. And so she made everyone, promise and block my number and all this crazy stuff. So I don't really have contact with them anymore. Apostate. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, no, I no longer have contact with them. But I have hope. They have a little bit of a rebellious spark in them, and I'm hoping it'll catch fire and hopefully they'll come out. But we'll see.
I hope that they do. It just, when you were talking, it reminded me of that talk video, whatever you want to call it, where they're talking about, you see the girl who's disfellowshipped and like she's trying to ring her parents and she's looking at the phone. She's like, no. And she's talking like, and I was great because if I could have got any little taste of fellowship, it would have been enough to satiate me and I would have been all good. Like, give me a break. Like, yay, they spoke to me for 10 minutes. I'm great. Catch you in 10 years. Like, that's not how family relationships work.
Not at
It's so
all.
stupid. It's like, I don't know. Those old men in New York just don't know what the heck they're talking about.
They're so out of touch. They're out
yeah.
of touch. It shows in all the videos. It shows in the stuff they write in the watchtowers. It's really bad.
And the worst decision they ever made was, let's get on camera and talk to people directly instead of being the mysterious wise people that they were. Because now they're just a bunch of clowns. They pulled the curtain back and you're like, what the?
It used to be, growing up, you would hear at the assemblies and the district conventions, especially whenever you had to really drive to them and they were a real event, that, you would hear, and now we have a member of the governing body, Samuel Hurd, whoever. It would be a special thing. You'd be excited. You'd perk up if you were still PIMI at least. Be like, this is a special thing from somebody. This is important. You better really pay attention. Now, once they started JW Broadcasting, it's like, cool, I see you every week anyway. Now, why are you leaving to make visits at all? And I don't think they are anymore at all. In fact, maybe that's why they started doing it. We got to jump on this thing. 1, in-home control. 2, now we don't have to commute anywhere. But it just took everything special that they had out of it. Now it's just another brother talking.
Vin Diesel comes out of retirement for a fast 20. It's like, come on, put those things to rest.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. It does lose its specialness that it's like, or even like Star Wars. It used to be like, a huge event and now they just crank them out and just like, yeah, Star Wars, whatever.
Yeah. Still like them. Cool.
Yeah.
Have them around, but it's just another TV show now.
So, let me think here. So I wanted to ask, like, if you could give some advice to your younger self, what would you tell yourself?
Mental health is important. Focus on it now. Be the number one thing. It's okay to get help when you need it. It's okay to cry. It's okay to feel emotions. And it's okay to ask questions. When somebody tries to shut you down and say, you're not supposed to ask that, that's forbidden knowledge, ask why it's forbidden. Don't stop until you get the actual answer to why they don't want you to ask that question.
Yeah. Because if it's the truth, it should stand up to scrutiny.
Exactly.
So if you're supposed to make sure of your faith, strengthen your faith, you should be able to look at it from all angles. Yeah. And it should accomplish that. It shouldn't be one quick look on the internet and your face is destroyed because you're like, oh my God.
Yeah. If your faith can be broken by a Google search without even clicking on any of the results, maybe your faith isn't as well founded as you thought.
Yeah. Sorry, were you going to say something, Kay?
I was going to say that's really good advice. I don't know what I would tell myself. I think I would focus on saying probably something along the lines of same thing. It's okay to question. It's okay to trust your intuition. Because I don't know if you guys had this, but there were things that didn't make sense even when you were in, but you just kind of push them to the side. Jehovah knows and we'll figure it out later or we'll find out in paradise. Yeah. But these are red flags that should be, they deserve our attention. They deserve answers. Yeah. And the fact that we pushed them off to the side, I regret that. I wish I had trusted my intuition a little bit more, and these questions of like, the ark doesn't actually make a lot of sense, or, the earth isn't 6,000 years old. These like silly little things that we were like, oh, we'll find out later. So I would say trust your intuition because it's there for a reason and it's guiding you in the right direction.
I think if I was to give some advice to my younger self, it would be, don't just accept things the way they are. Think about where you're at and really think about, do I want to be here? Do I want to do this? Do I believe this? Because I think if I'd had that mindset 20 years ago, I would have been out 20 years ago instead of 10 or whatever, or even sooner than that. Because my thing is, I was not a devout Jehovah's Witness. I was just sort of doing it. I was raised a Jehovah's Witness, so it was just sort of the thing that I did, how I was raised, and I didn't really put any thought in, like, is this faith mine or is this my mom's? And I think I just sort of cruised. There was that illustration about being in a rowboat and just sort of not having any oars and just sort of drifting along. That was me. I didn't, I did like things like, the microphones and sound and parking and whatever. So I did the duty stuff. But as far as like the real deep down meditation and like really thinking, does this make any sense? I just sort of read it and go, okay. I just sort of accepted things the way they were. And I didn't listen to any of those voices in my head. I didn't watch those red flags. And it's just, I wish that I could reclaim that time, because there was so much life. You only have so much life. And, a big chunk of it was spent doing that. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, you both are still pretty young. I'm middle-aged, so I gotta...
48 middle-aged?
I don't know. Maybe.
Well, the song says our years are 70 or 80, so yeah, you're in there. I'm getting close.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to try to squeak out till 80, I guess.
No, there's still time. You still have time. It's funny. My perception of age has changed as I get older. So at 20s, I used to be like, 30-year-olds are so old, and now I'm 32, and I'm going, no. I wish I could go
to
back
be 30 again.
Right? So now I look at 40. Now I look at 40, 50-year-olds, and I'm like, no, they're still young. Like, they still got, energy and time, and like, unless you're on a walker, you still
I'm working on it. Some days I feel like
right out of reach right over here because my knee's been bothering me again. So I don't think I had that problem when I was 20.
Yeah.
I'm sure we could probably give a long list of things wrong with us. I have a messed up neck and back and all kinds of things. That's just age for you, but oh well. Yeah, I guess you're as young as you feel. Yeah. Sometimes I feel young, sometimes I feel like ancient.
That's fair.
Oh well. Make life the best you can.
Yep.
It's interesting you talk about having been born in the truth, being born a witness.
Yeah.
And because I was born into it, and I lived in an area where I had no other socialization outside of the Kingdom Hall. I went to the meetings, and I went to school, but I took it very serious because my parents were the kind of parents that took it as serious as they could, but they also were very young parents. My mom was 17 when she got pregnant with me. So they didn't know what they were doing. They were not prepared for it financially or mentally. And so they would go all in on everything. We would burn any books that had any type of bad language in it. We would periodically go through our DVDs and ironically have a bonfire with them. And that was what I was allowed to read.
Maybe we can burn this. Just kidding.
A relic. My book of horror stories for sure.
Yeah, somebody made that comment in a TikTok the other day, and they were just genuinely mad. Like, how dare you decide to, like, that's a terrible thing to want to burn a book like that. I'm like, they're just kidding.
Have you seen the book? Have you read it? Do you see what's inside of it? But the relevant point for me is that because of this, I didn't know the things that I was being taught were wrong. And I had no outside exposure to it either. Our school was very, very, very conservative, so it went along with a lot of the teachings of the witnesses. They were very homophobic, very misogynistic, very outdated. And so even in school, I was learning things that felt like they were reaffirming those. And it was, and I took it so serious that I was a full grown adult before I was even exposed to some of these concepts and ideas. And one thing I wish I could have done when I was younger is realize being gay is okay. Women are the same as men. There are people other than women and men that exist. And all of these questions that you just sort of take for granted when you're a witness. And it bothers me that I was doing these very wrong, hateful things. And it wasn't that I was doing it on purpose. It was, I was indoctrinated to believe that I was actually doing good. I don't like that.
I feel like for me particularly, it was really hard to come to terms with like, yes, I did all these horrible things, but I never did them out of hatred. You know, I didn't hate gay people. I didn't hate, you know, because you think in your mind, well, I'm doing this out of love. Like, you're doing it because that's truly what you believe is right. So at the end of the day, like, that's really all you can ask of someone, which is why I don't have a lot of hatred for like my family shunning me, because it's like, it's wrong, but you're doing what you think is right. You're not doing it because you hate me. You're not doing it because you have something out for me. You're doing what you believe genuinely in your heart is the correct thing to do. And that's really all anybody can ask, you know? So sure, it's shitty. Yes, I wish you would open your eyes and see that it's not, but I'm not going to blame you. You're indoctrinated,
Right.
you know? And same goes for us. It's like, now that we're out, yeah, it was awful and shitty, but we were indoctrinated. We were doing literally and genuinely in our hearts what we thought was right. And that's really, that's it, you know?
I was similar when I was out and my kid's up there having a fit. I wasn't mad at my mom, and I wasn't mad at the organization because I hadn't gotten to that point yet. Because I thought, you know, they're decent people, and, you know, yeah, it's the truth, but it's just not for me because, you know, I don't feel like I'm stacked up to do it right. I'm not worthy. So that was a part of the reason why I didn't go back too. Is this is like, why am I doing this? Like I'm bending over backwards to try to do the right thing, and I don't think I'm ever going to get there. So I just kind of decided I need to start living my life. And then with my mom, you know, I was upset that we were in this position, but I felt like she was doing what she felt was right. What in her heart was the genuinely right thing to do. And then it took me a while to get to the point where I'm like, okay, she feels that, but what she is being taught she's supposed to do, that's wrong.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
And that sort of led me around to like, I am pissed at this organization because look what they did to my mom.
Yep.
You know, and I guess unfortunate because my sisters were never baptized. I have two younger sisters, and we talk all the time. And, you know, they live in Indiana, and my other sister recently, well, she's living on the East Coast. I forget which state it's in, New Hampshire, I think. Yeah, and we talk all the time. And, you know, if they had gotten baptized, it'd be a different situation. And because they weren't baptized, of course, my mom talks to them and their kids and stuff. And it's just like, you've got a 5-year-old stepson who's named after my father, and you've never met him. And you're probably never gonna, because you're just going to be stubborn and keep living this way.
Yeah.
You realize it's, you know, or at least for me, like I realize like it's not my mom's fault, you know, it's this darn organization and all their BS that they're pushing on these people. And unfortunately, well, at least for my mom, she was very like prone to that kind of thinking from the very beginning. My mom was an orphan. She didn't have anyone, you know, growing up. She got married when she was I was born when she was 14. So like she was a very young mother.
Yeah.
So her whole life has been one hardship after another. So for her to find, I almost feel sorry for her in that like your life was so sad and so hard. I'm glad you have something that brings you hope, at least, because it would be even more sad for you to feel hopeless and alone in the world. So at least you have, you know, community and a hope. It's shitty and it's crappy that you're leaving me out of it, but as long as you're happy. And at the end of the day, I don't blame her. I blame the organization big time, because they know it's not true.
Mhm.
They know what they're pushing is a bunch of, BS, but they're
Yeah.
still doing it, and so that's the part that I'm like, I aim most of my hatred, if you will, at the organization, because
Mhm.
at the end of the day, how many people like my mom are out there who were just prone to this kind of thinking, you know?
And for a group of people that pride themselves so much on being able to do research, because that was something we used to say we did all the time, they don't tend to look at the things that are very readily available about the history of their own religion. It's not private, hidden, secret knowledge that we're trying to propagate. There's You can look stuff up in major publications that talk about the history with sources cited across the board, all the way back to its origin, and yet they refuse to look at it. And whenever they are presented with this information, they say that it's all doctored apostate literature. Well, so what if it is? Ask about it anyway. Think about it. But they won't do that, and instead the hateful eight wins, and they get to teach their parents to hate their kids. So yeah, I absolutely get what you mean.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
it
and
goes
they
back to that damn indoctrination, where it's like,
Yeah.
that's what they're told. Don't look at this. Don't look at apostate content. The last thing, I think, was it you that pointed it out, John, that they were talking about, like, don't even trust the news. The last talk with David Splain, where he was like, even the news can be fake. Like, so literally, they only want you to take in the information that's coming from their website and their broadcast, and that's it.
Mhm.
And like, to some extent, that's ridiculous, because we live in the information age. We literally have the internet on our phones.
Yeah.
But it shows what lengths they're willing to go to whenever they can see a trend that worked, you were fake news, and say, you know what? That worked for him. I'll bet you it'll work
Yep.
for us, and it does.
Yeah, it's kind of like, don't believe your lying eyes.
Yeah.
The information's in front of you. Believe your eyes. They're not lying to you.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just like, as far as being, apostates, and everyone just sort of like, it's the devil. No, it's just people trying to tell you something. Like, listen.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's
They
interesting, even the
demonize
term
it.
apostate, because that
Mhm.
doesn't hold the same weight with other religions like it does with witnesses.
It's true.
Talk to Mormons and Catholics and basically any other religion, you say, yeah, they labeled me an apostate. They're going to say, okay, what's an apostate? We're disfellowshipped. What's disfellowshipping? Oh, yeah, we have that. It's called excommunication. They came over last Sunday. They don't treat it the same way at all. Witnesses are, I call them they're like the normal mode. If you were to take like religions and leaving them away, you have like the Mormons, and they have their excommunication thing where it's sort of, you're no longer an official member of the church, but come over anyway, and it's encouraged to talk to them. Then you have us,
Yeah.
our former witnesses, where it's shunning, and then you have like Scientologists where they're going to go kidnap you and bring you back. And we're somewhere in the middle. But the term apostate itself, just the witnesses are the only group that hears that term and they shudder.
Yeah,
No
it's true.
pasta.
It's like there's different stakes when it comes to
Yeah.
being excommunicated with, say, Mormons. Like, they'll still talk to you, or they might treat you kind of crappy, but they're still going to talk to you. And, you lose out on your, I don't know, your immortal life in space heaven or whatever. That
You
getting
don't
your
get to
home
go to the other
planet
side of the
Earth.
star with us.
Yeah. So, but it's amazing how similar, these cults are.
Yeah.
Just the mindset and the tactics that they use.
Yeah. One of my best friends in real life is an ex-Mormon. He's one of the people that helped me wake up. And he's always talking to me about those things. In fact, he lives across the street from his previous temple. And so he has his Wi-Fi set up because he's a software engineer, where anybody who has their cell phone open to pick up open Wi-Fi, it'll take them to that apostate letter that they wrote with like an open source version of that book, and that's the
awesome.
home sign-in page. And yeah, it's very, very similar, some of the teachings, and yet so different.
It's funny, that reminds me, I was thinking the other day, I'm never going to suggest that anybody do anything illegal. I've talked about, like, I don't even think like raiding halls is a good idea because it's technically trespassing, and I don't want to see anybody get arrested unduly, because they just shut you out anyway. But if somebody out there was to, I don't know, hack JW.org and put on, what's his name? Jackson. I can't think of his first name. Brother Jackson's testimony at the ARC. Jeffrey Jackson, thank you.
Oh,
His testimony, to put that on the website, I wouldn't be upset if I saw that.
Yeah.
It would be an interesting turn of events.
Yep.
But for legal reasons, I am never going to recommend that.
This is not a recommendation.
This is not a recommendation.
Please do not go out and do this.
So, you seen those TikToks with the guys like doing weird stuff and it's like FBI?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want that situation to happen for me. So
yeah, for legal purposes, these are jokes.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because that's the thing. It's like, if they just stop listening to David Splain and whoever else is doing these talks and just look for yourself, think for yourself, instead of just taking it on faith that they know what they're talking about.
So my father was in a car accident a couple of years ago. He totaled his car, but he was okay. He had a mild concussion. But my mom was pretty worried about it because he was in the hospital for a couple of weeks. And so she calls me to let me know that it happened just in case. And part of that conversation was, why aren't you coming back? What is your hesitation? What is there a reason? What gives? And it was like the one opportunity that I was given to talk to my mom. And I was like, honestly, I'm studying right now as much as I can, which the elders told me to do, by the way. Part of my disfellowshipping meeting was, since you're out anyway, we want you to go ahead and read as much as you want. Anywhere, any source you can find, read up on it. Do that whole thing. It was almost like they were just trying to egg me on to leave. But that's what they told me, and so I did. And
we'll make sure he never comes back.
Yeah, pretty much. And I was reading about the ARC, and it was like, there's literally footage of one of the governing body members, or one of their representatives at least, in court in Australia, admitting to these, the database, and admitting to what they do and what their policies are, and about the 2 witness rule and all these things. And I told my, even if the witnesses have it right scripturally, even if their teachings that they think are correct that's not an organization I want to be part of anyway. And I just wish that I could get you to just watch it one time, hear Herd or whoever it was talking about it, and just hear the attitude behind it. Hear how they just say, oh yeah, we do all these things, but it's within the organization, so we don't have to go to the police about it. It's fine. Don't worry about it. We got this. It's not right. And her response was, like you mentioned earlier, it's one of those things. We just have to leave that in God's hands and know that at the end of the day, Jehovah's going to bring to light the people that are doing these things. And I said, all right, maybe he's doing that right now in court by having the brothers talk about it. Maybe they're wrong, and maybe this is God's way of telling them to admit it. Shouldn't you entertain that? Well, no, because if that was the case, they would have it on JW Broadcasting somewhere. So the indoctrination is so real. The evidence is there. It's right there. Just look at it. Horse blinders. It's not in the watchtower, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah. And that thing about leaving it in Jehovah's hands, that's like if somebody was just coming up to you and actively punching you in the face, nonstop, you'd be like, well, I'll leave in Jehovah's hands because eventually he'll take care of it. No, you're being hurt right now. Maybe you should do something about it right now and not leave it on faith that it's going to be A-okay eventually, because eventually you can just get beat to death. You might get beat to death.
Not to get too dark here, but the congregation one of the 2 congregations I grew up in, had somebody who was an elder doing an abuse situation to their child. Leave it at that. But the child went to the elders at least 3 different times growing up over the course of their life. First time it happened, they were 4 years old. Again, they were 14, and again, I think they were 17, and they were like, "I've had it. I'm done." Went to the elders every time, and they said, "Sorry, there's 2-witness rule, blah, blah, blah." So finally, she went to the police. She turned 18. She said, "Fuck it, I'm out of here." Went to the police. He admitted to everything. He's in jail for the next like 30 years.
Good.
It wasn't just her that he was doing stuff with. It was other people. And I use that as an example. I'm like, "Mom, this happened with that person. You know them. You know that this is not just some random list." And whenever he was talking to the police and everything, he said in an interview that it was brought up multiple times and they pushed it under the rug. So you have, not only are you like, am I recommending these things to you, but you're being given firsthand information. You watched it happen throughout my childhood. You saw them go to the elders and you saw them shrug it off because we were close families. We knew what was happening. And you still don't admit that there might be any kind of a problem. Well, there's always a couple of bad eggs. And you can't take the entire organization based on what one group of elders does. Sure you can, because it's happening everywhere else. You just have to open up and see if it's happening.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, it's like I said,
It's
I don't
terrible
wanna get
that
too
these
dark
things
there,
are.
but it's,
Yeah, it's terrible that these things are allowed to happen. It shouldn't.
Yeah.
It should be human. Human nature is to want to help if you can. If he's like, if I saw somebody stuck in a bad situation, I'm gonna want to help them.
Yeah.
And there's got to be a lot more people in the congregations that are like, no, that's wrong. But they're just mind washed and they're just, everything's covered over and they don't know about these things.
Yeah. And when they do, they're so brainwashed into thinking that the elders have all the answers. They're going to do what Jehovah directs them to do, and that's all that's necessary. They don't need to intervene because there's no need to.
Can do no wrong.
Yeah.
Police are there for a reason. Use them.
Yeah.
So, okay. So where can people find your particular forms of activism online? I'm not trying to be like we're done, but I just feel like there's a question to ask.
I'm just trying to remember what my TikTok handle is. I
And I can put
everybody
that,
else's so
I
often.
put that
I don't
link in
remember
there,
what
but
mine is.
So I just changed all of my. I'm rebranding, if you
Ooh.
will, to Kay is Nito at
Okay.
on TikTok, at Kay is Nito on TikTok and on Instagram, and soon to come maybe Twitter. But I'm not very active on Twitter because it's a little dumpster fire over there, so I try to stay away.
I think I used Twitter for about 5 minutes, about 8 or 9 years ago, and yeah.
Yeah.
It hasn't gotten any better.
No, it's gotten much worse.
I use Twitter to the extent that I follow a bunch of businesses and people that I want to keep like that use it. And so I just follow their timelines and hit the retweet button every so often for a contest. Otherwise, yeah, it's not worth being on yet.
Okay, well, if you don't remember any specific,
I'm mainly
points
active on Discord, honestly. Find us on the Apostate Coalition Discord. Come hang out with us over there.
apostates only, please.
Yeah.
We don't want any trolls. You're out, trolls.
Oh, I like trolls. I like to have fun with them. Don't they think that's an invitation? But when one of you guys does sneak in, banhammer. I got a real big one.
Awesome. Did you guys have any other stories, maybe from when you were both hanging out together, or?
We did, and I want to hear Kay tell it this time.
Oh, yes, please. Juicy.
I'm usually the one that talks about it, so I want to hear your side.
Well, I remember it. I probably remember it very differently than you because I'm not the one who, got in trouble big time here. But Zem and I, so I'm married. I've been married since I was 18 years old because that's what you do as a Jehovah's Witness. And Zem and I decided one day, well, hey, let's go out in service. We haven't seen each other, and it'd be great if we could just get together and go to field service, and then hang out a little bit after that, and then we'll go on about our way. And we were out with the group. Him and I paired off. Huh?
With the group.
Wait, yeah. There was a big group. There was a big group of people. I remember it being about 6 people.
Yeah.
There. It wasn't a small group. It was, so Zem and I decided, okay, well, why don't you and I try this door? We tried a couple of doors, I think.
Yeah.
After field service, the elders pulled them. I'm sorry, I'm still doing the pronouns thing.
At the time I was him. Works.
Yeah, at the time it was him. Pulled them aside and decided that was messed up because Kay is married and you're out in service with a married woman and you really shouldn't be doing that. And so Zem ended up getting in trouble with the elders about that because we were in his congregation. I went to the Spanish congregation usually.
Yeah.
He invited me to field service with his group. And that was not cool. I remember it being a big fiasco with the elders.
Yeah.
And the whole thing.
I don't understand that.
We decided to go in service together.
It's not like you're like, nobody's looking. Let's go in the backyard of this house and bone. Like,
no, yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
Like,
no,
what harm is it?
It was one of those. I mean, our territory there was very, very like suburban. I guess would be the right descriptor. So it was the 6 of us. We went up and we all paired off to walk the streets. And so we just, it was one of those territories. You didn't drive from house to house like you do out around here, but you would just park the car, everyone would get out, group up, and just walk on opposite sides of the court. Well, usually across that way, so you didn't shout too much and over here. But you just pair off and do the houses, and we just did a street. And one of the elders who called me aside was like, "Nobody could see you around the corner at that door. We don't know what you were doing." And that was a married sister. It's like, yeah, we were out in service together. We're friends. You wouldn't complain if I was out with brother so and so. You never do. No, because you're both guys. That's not a problem. And even then, I wanted to ask, but I wasn't enough of a smartass to say, well, what if I'm gay?
I was just going to say, have you heard of gay people?
Yeah, like if I'm gay, all the more reason to worry about me sneaking around the corner with somebody, right? But just 2 random high school friends aren't allowed to go out in service together because one of them's married.
Each other for years at that point.
Yeah, and to make it even worse is that if I was going out with your husband, it wouldn't have been a problem. That would have been encouraged. The misogyny, the deep-rooted sexism of you can hang out with the husband if they're married, but not the wife because somehow communicating with a married woman is cheating is just ridiculous to me.
Just don't steal the husband or you'll ruin it for that dynamic.
Yeah.
That'll be the local
Men
need
too.
Men cheat.
Like that was one thing that really stuck with me because, like I said, Zem and I had been friends for a long time by that point. We had hung out. I had gone to their meeting prior, and we would. If I'm not imagining this, we would hang out after the meetings.
Yeah.
Outside in the parking lot or whatever. And there was. I mean, they knew we weren't sneaking off to anywhere to do anything.
Our Kingdom Hall was one of those double halls, so it had like a shared center area with like the billboard for all the different postings, and the restrooms were shared and things like that. But then there was 2 separate actual main halls, and so the Spanish was on one side, English was on the other. Meetings were at the same time, so they would be over. We would just go hang out in the back of the hall together. Everybody knew there was no secretive. Nothing, because there wasn't reason to be.
That seems natural.
2 teenagers having a friendship.
Yeah.
And then whenever we decided to take it to the next level, let's go out in field service together, they took issue with that as if that's exactly what we were doing. Like we were trying to take it to the next level.
See, that's so dumb. It's like we went from talking about nothing to doing something spiritual together.
Yeah.
it's just a congregation you should
come
do.
out.
Yep.
Right, exactly. We were doing something for the congregation. We could have very well said, well, let's take the day off and go mess around, play some video games, or let's go grab a bite or whatever. They would have never known about that.
At the time, I was working at a local indoor go-kart track. So I could have gotten anybody I wanted to in for free, and we can just go racing. Let's go go-karting for a while, which we did sometimes. But, that day we were like, let's go out in service. We didn't get in trouble for going to the kart together. But we got in trouble for going out in field service together. The one thing that you would think is the most okay thing you could do with somebody would be go out in field service together. But
yeah, you're in the middle of a street with a bunch of other people. Really.
But to be fair, I suppose I should have expected something like that from this particular group of elders, because I also got in trouble by one of them for going out in early morning service with my own sister. And I mean my flesh and blood sister, who's how young is she compared to me? 4 years younger than me, I think. I don't know. We never thought about birthdays growing up. I don't know how old they are. I don't remember what their birthdays are. But yeah, my sister
I have
Chelsea.
both birthdays too.
You remember the middle of the five of us. We went out in early morning service, just at that same gas station we would always go to by the hall, from like 6 to 9 or something like that before main service. And the elder calls us over and says, "Yeah, we're." He even made the joke, "We're close enough to West Virginia that people might ask. We're in Texas." I wasn't allowed to go in service with my own flesh and blood sister, so I should have expected it. And I think that says more about that elder than anything.
Yeah,
I was just about to say that.
Just to make it clear, that's not the whole every witness group is going to say that about their sisters, but this one did. And they took an issue enough with it that I was not allowed to go out in early morning service with her anymore.
I get the feeling you would have been kind of like this. You're kind of a weirder, weren't you?
Yeah. And looking back, I mean, he was. I don't have any suspicions of him doing anything wrong, but he definitely had some interesting ideas, and he would occasionally bring them into the congregation during some of his public talks and stuff. And then you'd hear from local needs later on some minor clarifications that didn't quite follow the same kinds of things that he was saying. So I think there was some behind the scenes stuff going on.
So you didn't suspect anything, but you wouldn't have been terribly surprised, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is the worst kind, because those are the ones that typically are the ones that are problems.
Yeah.
The ones you suspect come out easier.
Well, that sounds like a good place to stop.
Sure.
I don't know. I'm sure we'll talk more about the ARC stuff in the future, and we can have more of those conversations. But yeah. So I'll put links in the show notes about any places where you guys can be found.
Yeah, I'll find my info and send it to you in a DM here shortly.
Sounds good. And if you can stick around, in about 20 minutes, we should have another thing with a larger group, I hope. And we can chat it up a little bit for that. So
yeah, I got somebody who's interested in joining in that.
Awesome. More the merrier. I love it. You can have up to 10.
Okay.
So I want to thank you both for coming on. It's been a real pleasure and a treat. And we'll talk more and talk to more people out there. Get out of the cults. They're bad stuff.
Yeah. Let's go.
So have yourself a nice evening, and I will talk to you later.
See you later.
Bye for now.